Hello, my name is This. I'm here to talk to you about... I'm here to talk to you about projects today. Every year, I see the same pattern in students when they're working on their assignments. Assignment gets given here, a bit of work gets done, then the students stop working and fool around for a while. A long while. A very long while. And then, about a week or so before the deadline, the students suddenly remember about the assignments, start crunching, working overnight, and in the end the students will submit whatever they were able to throw together. This is such a common pattern, it's even been named student syndrome. The problems with this are quite clear. Firstly, it's obviously wasteful. Secondly, during that last minute crunch time, the project doesn't actually get finished. People just keep working and working and working until the time is up, and then they submit whatever they had done. It's not necessarily what they actually planned, it's more what they actually just had time to do. Thirdly, if this were a real project, a customer would not just hand the team some money and expect to see the product at the end of the contract. They will expect to see progress reports, demos. They'll want to know that people are working regularly on the project. So what we really need is a way to make sure that the project has maximum value. It's got the things that the customer really wants, or the students can get the maximum amount of marks for their project. Secondly, we need to make sure the team keeps working consistency to minimize on that last minute crunch. Thirdly, the team needs to know how the work is progressing so that they can pace themselves, speeding up if they need to. And also, they can show that quite clearly to their teacher or to their customer. So, what should we do? If you look at a book on developing software, generally they'll talk about the waterfall model. The waterfall model goes like this. First, you do your analysis and you write up all your requirements in some big thick document. Then, you'll take this requirements and design and do all your design documentation, UML, that sort of thing. After all of that's finished, then you get onto the coding and you write all your code. Then it gets handed over to testing. Testing will test everything. And finally we get the release. In practice, of course, it rarely works that well. Writing heaps of documentation for the analysis for the design can take ages, and there's no actual code written. More importantly, if I told my students to provide me with a 20-page write-up of all the analysis and design for the system, they'd either riot or they do such a poor job that it's basically useless. So let's try something else. Let's start with a wish list. A list of all the features that the customer wants in the product. We'll call this list the product backlog. There's no fixed format to the features, but it's good if we summarize them, say, in the following format. As a whoever, I want whatever the feature is, so that our reasoning. If the feature needs extra information like task breakdown, feature clarification, hey, just add it. Adding a time estimate is a good idea, but not essential. The product backlog needs to be arranged in order, with the most important features at the top and the least important features at the bottom. Why? Because that's the order we're going to work on the project. The stuff at the top, i.e. the important stuff, gets done first. The stuff on the bottom gets done till last. Ideally, this backlog should be created and managed by the customer. In practice, you might need to manage it yourself. But wherever possible, get your customer to give you feedback on which of the items which are more important and which of the items which are less important. And don't believe people who say, oh, but everything is important. They are lying, or they're just too lazy to figure it out for themselves. Ask yourself this. In Microsoft Word, have you ever used the Send to Bluetooth feature? What about the Save feature? Have you ever used that? Are these two features equally important? Enough said. Well, seems like we've cleared the maximize value issue. So let's look on to the next one. Working consistently. Solving this problem is actually quite simple if you think about it. If people slack off when the deadline's miles away, then put the deadline much closer. Rather than have a deadline every 3-6 months. Let's make it every 2 to 3 weeks. That way, the team is always sprinting to the next deadline, as opposed to thinking it's miles away. But what are we going to do in each of these coding sprints? Again, it's quite easy. Go to the product backlog and take the first few features from the list. Exactly how many features? Well, that depends on how much the team feels they can commit to. If they finish all the features, great. Then just grab another feature from the backlog. If they can't finish all the features at the end of the sprint, then just take the incomplete features and push them back to the backlog, ready for next sprint. Key thing. For each item on the backlog to be marked as done, it must be really 100% done. That means the design, the code, the test, the integration, it's got to be demonstrated working in your application. Well, that looks about right is not good enough. That's not done. I've seen and I've worked on too many projects where people said, oh, it's nearly done, that's nearly done, just about finished, it'll be there. And when people actually try to put it all together and really check it, it just didn't work. The end goal of every sprint should be that we have a product which we can demonstrate to our customer. If the customers are not around, it's okay, but we have a product which we could demonstrate. Now, obviously, for the first few sprints, we're going to have a skeleton which is not very useful. But with each sprint, more and more features, more and more value is being added, and the product is looking closer and closer and closer to being finished. Well, moving the sprint deadlines to every couple of weeks should address the working consistently issue. But it can also show the customer that the work is progressing or not, as the case may be. How? Well, just draw a graph showing the features which need to be completed against the number of sprints. If your features contained a time estimate, use the time estimate against the number of sprints. See what we have? It's a burn down chart showing how fast the work is progressing and when the expected time to finish is. Suddenly, everybody can clearly see if the project is on schedule or not. The team can see if they're going to make the deadline. Everybody knows where they stand. Does all this make sense? Seems reasonable? Seems doable? Good. Time for my confession. What I've been explaining is not my idea. It's just a cut-down version of the agile project management technique known as Scrum. There are a few other things in the Scrum toolbox. Managing feature change, sprint planning, retrospective, building what you need today versus what you might need, breaking down features into tasks, the task board, burn down within the sprint, the daily Scrum. But rather than go into these, you can easily look them up yourself and decide if you want to use them. There are no special tools or software that you need for this. A word processor, spreadsheet, or even a whiteboard is enough. So here are the basics. Take it from there.